What's up, everybody? It's your favorite Sith apprentice's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Hot Toys Darth Maul. Really excited to get this guy. Came out sooner than I thought he was going to, and I couldn't be happier about that as well. So I'm anxious to talk about him, but before we do, we have to talk about accessories. Of which he comes with a metric ton, including but not limited to this base, which is definitely from the kind of final battle with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. You can see the detailings in the floor, and it all looks super legit in terms of deco. And then the front has the nameplate with the little plastic bit over top that I can't seem to find the corner of that you can peel off. It keeps it protected en route. And it comes with this, which I'm not a huge fan of when they do these. They don't do them all the time, but when they do them, I'm not a huge fan. So you screw it in here, and in order to get the clip onto it, you have to take off this top piece, and I have found that these are usually tightened too tight, and then you have to loosen this with a screwdriver, get it fitted right, and put it back on. Like, I just prefer the two-prong method, but I understand why they did it because of all of his kind of cloaks and layers and so forth. I get it, but I still find it aggravating. But that's what you got here. If you'd like a little bit more flair involved, you can have your kind of droid, which is super cool. It's super detailed, like all of the kind of chrome metallic paint, it's not chrome, but the metallic paint throughout, and then it has some weathering on the edges of it, all done with a silver paintbrush, it looks like, and that's done very sharp. And then you have the extra little odds and ends and the little purple metallic sitting there in the center, the little antennas and so forth, and they give you a translucent little stick here that you can then stick into the base, he says. And then you take the antenna, and you can stick that into the top of his head. There you have it. And it looks pretty cool. I'm not mad at that at all. It is a little, like, it could have used a wider base, because like it is a little flimsy. And that's a bit unfortunate, but you know, once you have it posed and everything and sat on your shelf properly, you shouldn't have an issue. You get a force projected Maul, which maybe they have plans on doing a kind of Sidious from this era, which would be kind of cool. But other than that, I'm not exactly sure what you would do with this display, but it is done well. It has like, it almost has like that 3D printed texture to it, which makes it look like it has like, you know, like layers moving through the kind of the projector of the hologram. So it's done well enough. There's varying levels of translucence between the shades of blue. It's cool enough, I suppose. Let's see if I can't put it on a, so you know, you can work something up with that, I suppose. Good enough. It comes with an extra head. It's painted the same, and we'll talk about the details when we get to the proper head, or the one that comes with standard anyways. The red is maybe a shade darker, but like I said, we'll get there. And the expression is cool enough. We have the screaming, the teeth are all done well, the tongue is painted and washed, the teeth are painted and washed, and then decoed with like kind of the grit and grime of some person who could stand to take the old Colgate challenge, am I right? And then you're also given this tool. This tool is used to go inside and change the eye positioning, which I do like when they do this. However, I do often find it challenging to get them squared up. But let me see if I can't get it to work here. There you go. Let's have him looking like real crazy. This is Darth Maul's drunk uncle, Darth Balls. And he's seen some better days, you know what I mean? He comes with a wide array of hands. You get holding hands left and right. You get a left fist hand, but no right fist hand. You get left and right force using hands. You get left and right binocular holding hands or relaxed hands, but he came in the opening footage that you saw with relaxed hands. And then you get a right wide holding hand. And should those hands break at the wrist, you get 2 replacement wrist hinges, which are ball hinges that plug into both sides, so you'll be able to get up, down, in, out, not both at the same time, obviously. And you have 2 of those, as well as some replacement parts for any of your chrome buttons, buckles, or leather surfaces that come along with it. But these hands of fury aren't done here. You get 2 replacement arms that plug in right above the elbow where the bicep is, and then they're both holding a lightsaber. One is holding the double-bladed, one is holding the single-bladed, after it's been cut in half by Obi-Wan? Yes. And they both have wrist hinges that go up and down, and they swivel, which is nice. They're getting better and better at this. These are both for light up features. And in case you were worried, the answer is yes, they do come with batteries for them. I don't think I'll use them because I never find myself lighting up the lightsabers for these guys, but it's cool to have the option. We'll talk about the details of the blade or the hilt itself when we get there, which is very soon, but not quite yet. Because first we have to talk about two glove sleeves that he comes with. One for summoning the kind of probe droids or the kind of reconnaissance droids, and then the other one to be used with the light up hands. I guess it gives you a little bit more range of motion. Both done the same, and then this nice chrome finish on this piece looks quite nice. He also comes with this lightsaber, of course, as well as this little piece here, which we'll talk about in a second. It's nicely done in the silver. Some little kind of corrosion. I will say, like, the one thing I do find a little bit distracting is like the seam between the two pieces that make up this blade are very obvious to me. I know that's a nitpicky thing, but it does stand out. The red buttons are all painted, and then it is like lightly washed in the recesses to bring out a lot of those details, and all of that looks good. You can also separate them by just pulling straight out, and then you can use this piece with this section to give like the cut in half look, and you have like the kind of circuits and singed pieces there, which all look cool as well. He'll hold that just fine. You also get these two plastic little bits here, and they can go one or the other, can go inside of the lightsaber, and then if you use the other, as I will show you here, let's take this out. I should just put that one in. What am I doing? I'm an idiot. So if you use this one that has the little notch, you can then hang that directly from his belt. You then get the 4 standard sort of Hot Toys blades, which is to say one of each, so we'll just remove 2 and talk about the other 2. Red translucent that gets gradually smaller towards the tip, so to speak, and then one swinging effect, you know what I want, one with a white blade going up it with red translucent around it to try to give that feel, but it's not coming anytime soon. But you still get these. They'll plug into all of the hilts. The standard one that you can take apart in half, as well as the 2 that come with the electronics for the arm itself. And there's a quick look at utilizing some of those features. And I think they work pretty well. You kind of get to see the different blades here, the eyes, the alternate head. And then you get his binoculars, which look pretty good. Tons of detailing. Like we have this silver, we have weathering on this silver, we have the black added on, we have like the kind of rusty, sandy look effect. We have the paint inside where the lenses are, all of the grooves, all of that stuff is washed, all of this stuff is painted on. Like it's done to the nines. They need the purple lens here and then the red and black paint. Looks, I mean, it's amazing. They knock stuff like this out of the park. I love their plastic work, and this is no exception. Look at all the little screw plates and stuff. I love it. And this one does it quite well. And then he also comes with his outer cloak. All of the kind of texturing here in the cloak is 100% accurate, how it's all kind of folded up like a fan. That works well. There's a clasp in the middle where it goes around him. The arms go through here. And then this goes around the back. So we'll take a look at that. So you can pull off this kind of iconic look if you so desire. Head sculpt wise, it's really great. I don't really have any issues. Now, of course, the amount of makeup and kind of horns and effects and so on and so forth is going to really help with that and kind of make it a bit easier. But even that being said, I think they've got the shape right. Not only the proportion of the tattoos to the shape of the face, but the shape of the face alone. The nose, the proportions of nose to mouth, eyes to nose, it all looks right. So I don't have any real complaints regarding this. I think they did a knockout job. They went with a more angry face, which if you look at the image to your left, I like the more like just calm and confident face, but we all know he gets angry fairly quickly. It's just a matter of preference, but I feel like since they gave you the super angry face, I would have liked the less angry one like we're seeing here, but I can't knock the accuracy. It's dead to rights. Now, full body wise, I think it's hard to say because it's just layers and layers and layers of black cloth. So it's kind of hard to differentiate it all, but it looks pretty accurate to me. My only real issue is, and has been kind of while I've been manipulating them, is I feel like the bagginess of the pants should be like a little bit more pronounced. Like when I imagine him, I imagine a very samurai look. And I found myself kind of keep adjusting the pants, and also the tunic kind of keeps rising out from under the belt, and then I found myself having to kind of keep going down and kind of tighten up the tunic. But that's more of an engineering thing regarding the soft goods than it is actually a problem with the design of the soft goods in and of itself. So I think it's pretty much spot on. I don't have any real complaints aesthetic wise with the face or the overall look of the figure. So let's talk paint and deco. And we'll start with this head, so to speak. And it is done quite well. Like the eyes are painted beautifully, like the Sith eyes with the black pupil and then the orange and the kind of fiery red iris around it. Looks perfect. The black looks perfect, like it's kind of a matte black. It looks like it's on a skin tone. Like, it looks really well done. It's a nice choice there. All the horns are painted and then washed from bottom up, so it gives a nice worn look there. And then the expression, while not my preferred, does work extremely well. And look at that profile. Like, it's just spot on. And then it has like the little stud in the ear, which I never even noticed before. I'd have to go back and check that out. And so on, like even like the red coming through from where the horn sits on the head, like that's all screen accurate. That looks great. Really, really, really quite well done. The only other things that we had to talk about are the gloves, which are all done the same, just this flat black with the leathery kind of texture sculpted in. And they look good, no issues. They know what they're doing in regards to kind of creating this faux leather look with plastic, so they kind of know their way around that, and it shows. And then the boots, which you have the design, like the double V, that looks good. Then you have like the strap, that's all done, and actually it looks like it has some like dirt in it. So that looks good. It almost looks like it needs to be dusted, you know what I mean? But that's done purposefully. So that looks cool. The layers and the hiding of the engineering surrounding the ankle articulation and where the boots stop and start is extremely smart. All of the ribbing, so forth. Like, it all looks good. The little seams in the back with the triangle. Like, all that stuff is sculpted in like they really left no stone unturned. And now we'll talk about the soft goods. So we have the faux leather here. You have the strips, and then you have the outer piece. And my only issue with that is I can't tell if it's riding up or if it's sitting too high. I feel like it's close. It's not like obnoxiously so. I just feel like it's maybe like a 1/8 of an inch, you know, and maybe it's just me. So then you have this tunic underneath, which is cool, and it has the collaring that all has stitch work done in it. All of that looks good. And then you have the outer tunic that has the kind of folds in it that looks good. That's sewn into this tighter bit, which does look a little dolly, so to speak, but I don't think you'll notice on the shelf. And then it comes down to all of these flaps here. So you get this one, these two, they're all attached, I believe, to this leather piece here. All of them have the flat wire strips in them for bending and posing, and that works really well. I love what they've been doing recently with the flat wire strips. It's more seamless than like the regular wire that a lot of companies use, and it works very well. Then you have these inner two flaps, and they are the ones that are actually connected to your tunic. So if you need to kind of tighten it up a bit, then you just grab the innermost one and you'll see that tugs down on there and kind of keeps it tight. Then you have the longer two on the side, and then you have the big flaps underneath that are done of the same fabric that the pants are done, which does give some depth to it. So I'm good with that as well. Then on the back, you have the outer and then the kind of pant texture-y one. All of it works. And then you have the pants themselves, which if I were to point out one thing where like the weight doesn't look quite right, you know, that's kind of been one of my ongoing concerns and criticisms regarding Hot Toys soft goods integration, is that a lot of times the fabrics don't look like they have the weight. And this is one that I feel like you really need to kind of tighten up in order to make sure it looks right. And you can get it, like I feel like that looks right, you know. Let me get this flap out of the way, maybe that'll help. Like that looks right to me. But, you know, when it gets all bunched up, like that doesn't look right. It looks like it was in the wash too long. So you just got to be on top of that. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a lot of layers of the same type of stuff, but it works well. Now let's talk about the engineering. So the head is on a magnet. They've been doing this more and more. We just saw this recently on the Flash figure for the Patreon folks. So works pretty well, and then you can get down, up, side to side, and it's pretty seamless. So you can get some pretty extreme poses out of it. So that's cool. And then you have the double jointed chest to abdomen, and then the single abdomen to pelvis, and that's a double ball peg, single ball peg. And it works okay. It works better for the crunch and for the side to side than it does for the swivel, but as you can see, you can get it. It's just not quite as seamless. So I think all of that is kind of acceptable, with the head being sort of stellar, so to speak. Because sometimes they kind of, You know, a lot of times Hot Toys had the head and neck piece connected to a single ball peg down, and like it limits articulation a lot. So this gives you some. It has a little seam there, but that's not a big deal to me. You have disc hinge shoulders that go to a ball peg inside the chest, and then that gets you a little bit of a butterfly joint forward, a good one back. You get the arm up because of the bagginess of the soft goods up to there, no problem. And you can get it forward to about straight out, so no issues there either. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, and then we saw and talked about how the wrist works, so no issues there. Same for the other side. Now, for the hips, I'm gonna guess they're ball peg, but they might be universals. I can't tell. But because of the bagginess of the pants, great range out to the side, great range forward. So no issues there. Bicep swivel, built around the ball peg, and then we have ratcheted double jointed knees. I don't know why we don't get that more often, but we have them here and they work well. There's also some padding. You know, sometimes Hot Toys will use some padding up underneath to kind of bulk out the figure, and there is some in here. And it's seamless. It works well and you don't notice it, so that's good. The ankles, of course, we usually have ankle issues with Hot Toys in terms of range of motion. No real difference here. You get a little bit of an ankle tilt down, a little bit up, actually a fair bit up. And your rocker, and I think that's all on a double ball peg. And you get some, you know, for sure, but it's not a great range. And if you've even looked at some of their promotional pictures, they can't hide it either. So that's one of their limitations. Often is it's very rare that they can fix it. But that's this guy, and it works pretty well. And then I have him in my kind of prequel row, and he looks pretty good. This isn't the most flattering angle, but like kind of straight on. That's pretty strong, man. That's pretty strong. And then the kind of holy grail case. Final thoughts wise, let's talk about the negatives. One of the biggest issues I have with this guy is that the leather gloves, the higher end of them, comes up over another piece of leather. That piece of leather has a hole cut out of the bottom for the peg to come through to connect the hands to it. The problem with that is as you go to connect hands, that piece of leather tends to slide down towards the peg, making the connection between the peg and the hand more challenging. Far from impossible, but certainly more challenging, and certainly not fun. It definitely takes away from the fun factor of swapping out hands and accessories and all that kind of stuff. My other issue is the hood of the robe. It's equally challenging to get the hood to lay flat against the back of the head. It has a tendency to want to puff up. Now the way to fix that, in my opinion, is to slide the hood a bit back, at least below the first row of horns, and that'll sort of angle the bump out a bit more towards the back and hide it better for the sake of a display. But I still don't think they've done a hood as well as the one they did for Anakin. My last two minor gripes are that the Tunic has a tendency to kind of rise up, and you kind of have to keep sorting with it and messing with it and fixing it in order to make it look right. Not the biggest deal in the world. Maybe it costs doing business, but it is a little bit obnoxious, and I wish the weight in the pants had more of a realistic weight to them, and that goes for the sleeves on the outer cloak as well. Similar material. Plenty of positives though. The face sculpt is beautiful, and the paint that goes along with it is just as good. The metal framing that's used within the cloak hanging elements works beautifully. I believe a gentleman called them tabards recently. Which is awesome. It's just not a word regularly in my vernacular. All of the texturing within the fabrics looks good, whether it be on the outer cloak with the ribbed elements or in the more linear elements in the inner tunics. The sculpt work on the boots is done beautifully, and most of the articulation comes through without problem. In fact, all of the articulation with the exception of the ankles and pelvis, or waist rather, works better than most Hot Toys figures you'll come across. Add that on top of a box filled to the brim with accessories, to a point where it was daunting to even do this review because I was like, how long is it going to take just to get to these accessories, man? A beautiful display base to go with it, and it's certainly a strong recommend from me. Now, I've looked at the Sideshow one. It was years ago, and it was before I kind of really understood 1/6 figures. So it's not really fair to compare the two because in my mind's eye, this is infinitely better. However, I wasn't of the same mindset then that I am now. Nothing stays the same forever, not even me. But this is definitely a valued piece of my collection, and if you're at all interested in it, I can recommend it with great confidence. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.